Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti. Basically, we are in the first section of the text, right? Vedanta is talking about the ultimate reality, right? Now, it has to be first presented to the set people, and then once person is convinced, then he goes to the next level, going deeper in the understanding. So the presentation is section 1, where there's introduction to Vedanta, which is basically talking about what Vedanta is, and the rest will come to that. And then the section 2 is talking about practical Vedanta, where he goes technical. It talks about the Panchakoshas, it talks about the introversion, he talks about the states of consciousness, very important part, for yogas. Like we're saying, it's really fascinating. There's so much into it. Renunciation, meditation, and self-realization. There's a sequence in the second section as well. It starts from the basics and then again builds up. So when we talk about the basic constitution, it again talks about the personality in a different perspective. In this, we talk about here we have done the body, mind, and intellect. So that's one way of looking at it. That's more simpler way of looking at it. But more scriptural or technical way of looking at it is the Panchakoshas, which is covering in the human competence section 2. And then the self-analysis and the states of consciousness. We go through the 4 yogas, the method of evolution. Then comes to, if you follow that method, you reach a state of renunciation, detachment, and you're prepared for meditation, and you reach a state of self-realization. That's the theme there. And then the last section where it is the essence of Vedanta. Actually, sir says that, I wrote the entire 20 chapters to explain this uh, concept of illusion, the Maya, the concept of reality. So that is the ultimate concept which they're talking. In fact, use and abuse of religion is talking about the purpose of religion is to grow as a human. That's the purpose, positive and negative religion, what's happening in the society. Then it talks about law of causation, which is the fundamental laws of life. Theory of perception is very interesting. It is by a saint called Swami Ramatirtha. And, the way he thought about it, fascinating. Uh, and there is a concept of it goes along with the quantum physics. Quantum physics also had this idea about double slit experiment, where it talks about the theory of perception. So a particle electron is a particle or a wave. So if there's an observer, it behaves as a wave. And if there is no observer, it behaves as a particle. It's a very fascinating example. Or, quantum physics is trying to understand the reality. So the problem is in when you go subtler, uh, things get more difficult. Classical physics was when everything around us are being explained. In other words, in Newton, Einstein, they were all putting things together in terms of how the world is around us, right? But when it comes to subtler, when they started moving from the to the electron, and then they started seeing inside the electron the atom, proton, neutron, they behave differently. Inside the atom, the electron, proton, neutron, they behave differently. They don't follow the classical laws of physics. And then they started investigating further. They went to quanta and the rest of it. Why I'm mentioning that is the theory of perception really goes deeper and explains it. These masters have found it and they gave the answers to it. The only problem in the exploration of this objective scientists, so these masters, self-realized masters, were the subjective scientists who are exploring the individuality and going within the personality. And we have the people who are the objective scientists who are exploring the world. The only problem in the whole equation is the approach. They all want to come to a conclusion about understanding what is the origin, where did we come from, where are we going, why are we here, the purpose of life, and the rest of it. Everybody is trying to find that out. But the approach of an objective scientist is external. They are saying that by going deeper and deeper at the microcosmic level, I will be able to get it. I'll get the origin of it. And the other side of it is when a person going at the macrocosmic level. I find the galaxies, I find the different multiple areas, I explore multiple aspects, and then I'm able to connect, I'm able to understand the reality, right? Now, both the approach, either it is at the microcosmic level or macrocosmic level, has a limitation. And the limitation is the human limitation. The humans are limited by perception, emotions, and thought. So we cannot go beyond our limited perception. Eye has a limited perception, within certain range we can see. Beyond that, it's not perceptible to us, right? Beyond or above, you can't see it. Same thing at the level of hearing. Certain decibels only we can listen to. Before and after is not audible to us, right? Ultrasonic is not audible to us. Same infrared light is not seen to us. Same at the level of taste, same at the level of all five senses has a limitation. Now, when we are trying to find out from the limited perspective, the answers will be limited. That's the problem factor. And that is why this objective scientist can never come to an understanding of the reality. And that's where these masters they scored because they went beyond the human limitation to find the reality. And since they are coming from the top, from the absolute level, they were able to solve the relative problems as well. In other words, they were able to find the distance between the earth and the sun. How is it possible without any external avenues, external hardware aspects? It was possible for them to achieve it, right? There's a Upanishad which talks about how the womb is built up, grown to become a child, right? And modern science even they can't do it. Modern science gives the different stages of the womb, but here they go subtler. They go to the subtle body and they say how when did the life come in the body and the womb and then the rest of it. So how are they able to explore it? Because even if you talk about, when Einstein, this is something very fascinating for me. Physics, I really like to connect with philosophy, where physics and metaphysics starts. I know it gets boring for people, but for me, it is because they all are talking the same thing. In other words, the science is their only approach is wrong, but they are not saying anything different. That's what I'm trying to come to. So when they talk about E equal to mc square, which is the Einstein theory of energy equal to mass at the speed of light, c square speed of light, what they're saying is that energy is equal to mass. Mass has a property, has a feature, a functionality, and between us there is a sound energy, there is light energy, there's different energies which are there, which is not seen. So the equation says energy is equal to mass. So all purpose, they're saying it's all the same. And the same thing in the double slit experiment, where he talks about this concept of uh, how the uh, electron changes property when there's observer. Imagine how does an observer changes a property? When there's observer, it behaves like a particle. When there's nobody observing, it behaves like a wave. Like, what sort of a explanation is that? How can that happen? And even today, in the modern, I saw it like 3, 4 months back, they have been trying to make it as refined as possible, the experiment, double slit experiment. And they got into like microscopic level and all that. Still, they could not understand how the property is changing Suddenly, because there's an observer, this property is different. And when there's no observer, the property is different. And still on the topic of theory of perception, it is fascinating as we go along. Will somehow these are like two amazing, concept, an idea. How these masters found it, that's another story altogether. And that's the idealism, realism, and theory of perception. Then there comes the illusion. The and he There's a concept in illusion. It's not just generally saying the world is illusion. What I love about this concept, the idea, is the way they put it across. There's an intrinsic and extrinsic illusion. The two level of the problem. One is we are in a matrix to keep it simple. In fact, matrix is inspired by Bhagavad Gita. I don't know if you guys are aware. In the website, the director did mention that she's inspired by Bhagavad Gita. In fact, it is right the way they put it. Only point of difference is to make it commercial, or they took a liberty to create a concept of machine having a reason to create a matrix. That's the movie. But God has no motive to create the world. So that's the only difference. But there is no other point. The rest, what they're saying is right. So Neo is the guy who is seeking, like all of you, the person who is in the world, but he doesn't accept the things as it is. He wants to think differently. He wants to understand why are things happening in a particular way. That's the guy. And that's a spirituality. Spirituality is about having that growth mindset, that progressive mindset. There's no point of complaining about world, life, people. That doesn't work. So that understanding is what the philosophy is giving us, a bigger perspective of life. So that's what is illusion. When we come to it, we'll discuss about it. And the last is the supreme reality. And then we come to that thou art. That the art is talking about the reality and the expressions of reality. The God reality can't be understood directly, but by understanding the expressions, it is an indicative definition to know the reality. That's what that's talking about. That's a section 3. So we said that there are 3 sections. The first section is introduction. We're just introducing the concepts, ideas, and putting in a sequence. We'll come to that. The section 2 is more practical aspect of it, which goes technical. Vedanta, once you're convinced that there is something which is worth exploring, so you go deeper into the concepts, ideas, subtler, and then comes the essence of Vedanta. This is what Vedanta is talking about. It's not talking about general stuff. It's talking about the ultimate reality, the only philosophy, the only knowledge available to humanity, which is talking about the ultimate reality. There is no other information available in the world, ancient wisdom, which is talking about what is going around us. Where did we come from? Where are we going? Why are we here? What is the purpose? That is not being addressed. So this is where we come to an consensus understanding, and we build up ourselves. We don't have to accept anything. They're presenting facts. So it's in our interest to understand it better and apply ourselves. So the first chapter, first section, which we are right now, we are going to start the chapter 6 today. In the first section is talking about the role of Vedanta, where we discussed about the scientific aspect approach of Vedanta. Vedanta is a science. It's the contribution of several sages and saints. It's not one person who has given their opinion. It's based on facts of life. And that's what he's talking about. It helps you to achieve prosperity, success, and peace at the same time. World and human being is talking about going from the known to the unknown. Then it's going to life its course. The course of life, it's talking about how do we evolve as a human being. Each society and needs to grow, evolve. And what is evolution is defined as the goal of life. What should be the goal of life, the purpose of life? And then he gives a code of living, where he says that generally understanding the purpose, how do you apply yourself, which is where he talks about the at different level of a personality. How do we conduct yourself? Scope of spiritual education is to instill this knowledge and culture in the society, reflect on these higher ideas to grow. What do you mean by the scope of spiritual education? What is a point in that is, without the knowledge, we get stuck in life. A child is very fascinated with the toys, right? So when the child gets a tricycle, the value for the toys goes away, right? She is grown to a higher taste of enjoyment, the tricycle or the bicycle. The toys are there, but the value, the intensity of the value, importance for that goes away, right? Similarly, the child goes to a college or university, he gets into a different relationship, or he gets into a bike, or he has different passion. Automatically, all those toys, the value goes away. It's there, but he's not having the same intensity of the value for that object or being. Then he gets into a business or profession or whatever. The value for all those what happened in the college days and all, it goes away. Now, in humanity, what happens is all of us, we grow from the toys to a certain level in life. We all get stuck in name, fame, power, position, family, children, wealth, woman. These are the toys which makes our joys. These are the ceiling. Everybody gets stuck there. The reason being, the spiritual education is not there. That's what is the scope of spiritual education is, to give that higher understanding. How did the child grow from the toy to the bicycle? When it tasted a higher understanding, it experienced a higher way of living life, quality of life in the bicycle, automatically the value for toys went away. So, since the knowledge of spiritual education is not in the system, so we get stuck at particular level. Here you're saying that, okay, if you are able to put it, if you are having that understanding, which is the scope of education, spiritual education, is to give that understanding that there is more to life. Life can't be just to make a living, be born. Do we realize that animals don't need to educate themselves for 20, 30, 20, 25 years to make a living? They are born, they know how to function, how to live life, and what we are doing as a human being with the best of the creation. So there has to be something more as a purpose of life. And that's the scope of spiritual education. Then he talks about elements of right living, where he, if you remember, at the physical level, the service oriented, emotional level have the pure love, intellectual level have the clarity of thinking, knowledge, and then the three temperaments we discussed about sattva, rajas, tamas, very beautiful concept. Based on that, rajas, tamas is a state of the mind which is agitated, which is tamas, lethargic, lazy, indolent, heedless, reckless state of the mind is called tamasic. Grade C. Grade B is a state of the mind, rajasic mind, which is disturbed, agitated mind. And the sattvic is the matured mind. So the purpose being to move from tamas to rajas to sattva, which we have discussed earlier. Based on that, there was a concept of caste system which is being created, where they talk about the categorization in the society was based on the mental temperaments. Very interesting way they put it across. Then came the concept. So last time they did this concept of exigency of action. So the thought flow here, we are going first is introduction, what is Vedanta, then the moving from the known to the unknown. It's not just talking of unknown. Then we talks about the purpose. There has to be the course of life is growth, progress. And as a human, when we progress, there has to be defined by a goal in life. And then came the code of living, where the thought flow was that, okay, the scope of spiritual education is to give you the higher understanding of life, where you can set the goal based on that. And then the element of right living comes in. So, okay, if I have that goal, how do I reach it? The general understanding is given, the element of right living, and then the three temperaments. To set that pattern, understand your nature, which is the three temperaments is talking about, and the caste system comes in. Caste is general application in the society of the three temperaments, the mental states. Then came the concept of action, emotions, and intellect. Body, mind, intellect, what we are talking about, right? At the level of body, how do we optimize our actions? Which was what we did earlier, was the exigency of action. Action is must. We have to act, is inevitable. So, value of action is, what is the importance do you give to action? So, action has a purpose. Now, what is the purpose of action? Purpose of action is evolution. Action has to be addressed with that attitude of evolving through action. If we don't understand that value, what happens is we get stuck in action. It becomes, we take up responsibility and it becomes, oh, I can't do anything beyond it or without it. So it becomes like a Frankenstein. So we created that the problem, and we believe that I can't live without it. So a value of action has to be set very clearly, that the purpose is very much to grow as a human, and action is supposed to help in that. That's only the purpose. That's the value of action. Then came the chronology, one of my most favorite, amazing concept, which is given, the chronology of action. How does an action come about? It is your inner tendencies, which is called vasanas, becomes your thoughts, which first manifestation is at the level of thought. Then it becomes desires. It manifests into desires. Thought flow is called desire. And then it becomes action. You act on it. So vasana is your inherent nature, which is unmanifested desires. That becomes your manifestation of first level is thought. Then comes desire, which is desire's definition is thought flow to the world. You can write it down. It's a very important definition of desire is thought flow to the world. So that's how thought becomes desire. You want something from the world, thought goes to the world, and then comes the action. And in the last class, we discussed about how do we uh, optimize or get out of this chronology. So this is a natural sequence of flow. Action will be preceded by desire, desires will be preceded by thought, and thought will be coming from vasanas. Now, if we keep on acting naturally, we get into a loop. Action creates further vasanas, and we get into again the vasana thought desire action. So we discussed was very interesting point about each level. How do we optimize ourselves? One of the point which somebody brought it up later in the discussion. I got a message where it was a good point that we are talking about at the level of action. How do we optimize? Remember, we said about selfish, unselfish, selfless. We talked about desires, how to understand your desires, which is swadharma, and then categorize, guide your desires, and the rest of it we have already covered. Uh, then we talked about the thought. How do we optimize thought, the intention, right attitude, and the rest of it? And then we said for the vasanas, we need to create a conducive environment for the vasanas to manifest. That's the best we can do at the level of vasanas. The point which was brought in was at the level of thought. Can we filter it at the first level itself? The answer is yes, we can. We can, address it when the first thought comes. I get a thought for any sense object. So first thing is, why do I need it? Is it required? Is it necessary? Is it important? I'm analyzing at the level of the thought, right? Now, that is one way of approaching. But what happens is most of the thought has become action, has already grossified into action. So it is important to function whatever grossified action is easier to locate, understand, and work out than the subtler thought. So in the journey, yes, thoughts should be monitored, we should be conscious of what we're thinking, how we are thinking. For other people, it does matter. It comes into effect as a desire, as an action. But operate at the thought level is difficult. So we start from the grosser level, which is the action, then move it to the desire level and thought level. Whatever we can be aware of, we are able to address it and guide it according to our understanding. That's what we are saying, right? The bottom line is intellect controls the mind. You become conscious of your action. All the same. You're saying the same thing, right? So that's what we are talking about, the chronology of action. Then we said about renunciation in action is about how do we instill this thought, understanding while acting. It is not renouncing action, it is having renunciation while acting. That is spirituality. Spirituality is not about running away from action, but it is about having the right understanding of action, which means you do whatever ought to be done and you're not interested in the effect, result of action. That is renunciation action. And then we discussed about the three types of action, which is the selfish, unselfish, and selfless, which is a part of the exigency of action. If you have to optimize action, understand how action works, and then make it better. So move from the selfish way of functioning, A meets B, thinking in terms of what can I get, to an unselfish way of functioning, which is A meets B, thinking in terms of how can I add value, what can I do, how can I help, or moving to the higher level, which is selfless, doing what I ought to do in life. Learning from nature, rose gives fragrance, no prefix, no suffix. It's not waiting for somebody to, gardener or someone to come. It just gives naturally functions in its own way. So that's the highest level of action. But what we need to do practically is move from whatever level we are in to the higher level, selfish to wherever we have selfishness to the unselfish level of action. Now, that was the exigency of action. Today's topic is strength of emotion. So, the topic itself is fascinating. Why? Because he's saying how to make emotions your strength, right? Emotions are not a problem. Getting emotional is a problem. When we become emotional, you lose control on your emotion. Thereby, it becomes your weakness, right? In the feet of, in the, when I get emotional, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what I'm talking to. It can be any, I'm not able to function normally, right? I lose control of myself. And that's what is meant by being emotional. We say passion is not a problem. Being become passionate, you become victim of the passion. Okay? Similarly, emotion is not a problem. When you become emotional, you become victim of emotions. Right? Becoming victim of emotion is a weakness. And the topic here is strength of emotion. How to use emotion, how to guide emotion so that it becomes a strength in your personality. You're not seen as a weak person because you have lovely emotions. You're not seen as a doormat, but you are seen as a person with values, with understanding. And that's the idea here. So he says, people wrongly believe that a person imbued with Vedanta is devoid of emotion, not realizing that Vedanta only cautions humanity against the onslaught of emotions. The flood of emotions can overpower you, victimize you, literally destroy you. And it gives example of different places, different uh, themes where one emotion completely destroys the personality, destroys a society, community, the world. One emotion. It is so powerful. It is so impactful. So we need to understand what we are dealing with, right? So then he talks about Oliver Goldsmith portrays the ideal human being, a beautiful poem, The Village Preacher. The poet describes the village preacher as one whose intellect reigns over the mind's feelings and emotion. This guy is the best of a human. He actually, if you go to the village preacher, it's there in the poems book, where this guy he chose to live in a remote place. He chose to live a simple life serving the society, for living for the community, only attitude of sharing love, affection with others. And that's the beauty, how it's, Oliver Goldsmith, he picturizes this character, a man of perfection, a village preacher, and how everybody is so affectionate towards him and has so much of feeling and connect with him and the rest of it. So one of the aspect of this personality, why he is great, he is being depicted here, he as one of the person who intellect reigns over the mind's feeling and emotion. His heart is replete with chaste emotions for his fellow beings, but never does he let his emotions disturb his intellectual poise. His head rules the heart. Goldsmith used a striking metaphor to describe that the grandeur of the preacher's personality, compares him to a tall cliff that rises well above the level of the cloud. So what he's saying is, so imagine there is a huge cloud, there's a huge mountain. Okay, this village preacher, the to them his heart, his character is being depicted as, to them his heart, his love, his griefs were given. As some tall cliff that lifts his awful form, through the round is rest the rolling clouds are spread, eternal sunshine settles on his head. That's the metaphor. So what he's saying is, to them his heart, his love, his griefs were given. So whoever came to him, he gave that affection, love, care to everybody, right? But his serious thoughts had rest in heaven. He was attuned to the highest, and at the same time, he was able to have that purity of affection. That's the greatness of this guy. So people talk that, okay, Vedanta, when you start learning knowledge, you dry you of emotion. It dries you of emotion. You don't have emotion anymore, which is not so. It's not that you don't have emotion. What happens is your quality of emotions improves. So it improves from sensual to sublime, from personal to impersonal, from selfish to unselfish. This is what happens. The quality of the emotions changes. So that converts the frail emotions into the pillar of strength. When it is sensual, it was a weakness. When it is sublime, it is a strength. When it is personal, it is a weakness. When it is impersonal, unselfish, it is a strength. Selfish and unselfish. So that is how, with knowledge, you are refining your emotions, basically guiding your emotions. So, mind is like a river, it just flows, right? Intellect is the bank of the river. When we are able to guide that river properly, it becomes beneficial. If you're not channelizing that river, it can be detrimental, can be destructive, right? So the intellect guiding emotion becomes your strength. That's what he's talking about, right? So people say that no, 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 because intellect is guiding emotion, you don't have emotion. No, you become discreet in the way you express your emotion. And that's what he is giving the example of this village preacher. He is a person of values, of principles. He has lot of lovely emotions. So all the emotions are in the level of the chest, like a cloud. An awful form, a tall cliff. Imagine a tall mountain. This peak is attuned to the sky, higher values. It's a metaphor, right? They're indicating. Oliver Goldsmith is saying that since his head, which is symbolized by the top of the mountain, is attuned to the higher aspect of life, to the sky, his emotions does not disturb his head thinking. So he has lovely emotion. To them, his heart, his love, his griefs were given, but all his serious thoughts rest in heaven. As some tall cliff that lifts his awful form, swells from the vale, and midway leaves the storm. Rolls round his breast, the rolling clouds are spread. Eternal sunshine settles on his head. A constant poise, maturity is settling on his head. At all times, he is able to be in control of his personality. That stability of the personality is indicated by eternal sunshine. To have emotions, therefore, is a virtue, but it would be a grievous error to let them interfere with your intellectual awareness and judgment. That would tantamount to spiritual weakness. Mark it, important point. Nevertheless, history reveals that humans have let their emotions overthrow discretion and judgment. And he gives another example of Bhagavad Gita. So, where Arjuna was overwhelmed with emotion, and because of that, what happened is he could not function, he could not act. So, at any level, we should never let the emotions take over the action. So, key principle, emotions should always be under intellectual control. Be a master, not a slave of passion, right? When there is a sense object, who calls the shot? Am I controlling the sense object, or the sense object is controlling me? That decides the my control, my level, my spiritual level. So, intellect, not impulsive uh, thoughts, should guide the activities. So, entertain passion, not become passionate, harbor emotion, not become emotional. So, that aspect, when we get into emotions and we are not in control of it, that is called as weakness in the personality. And here in the first topic is talking about how do we convert this? What is meant by where does intellect come in the emotion? So, emotions are pure, nothing wrong with that, but they need to be guided by the banks of the intellect. If we don't do that, it can be detrimental. We will not know the consequence of it. And when we guide them, it becomes energy, it becomes power. The dams we use for electricity, it becomes helpful, beneficial. When it is not guided, it can destroy society, community. And that's what he gave the example of King Lear, Othello, Macbeth, where one emotion destroys the entire personality and the entire life is destroyed. One thought, one idea, one emotions. And same thing happened in the case of Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna did not have a control of emotion. He became completely emotional. And thereafter, the best of the individual was not able to function normally because he became overwhelmed with his emotions. He started personalizing. That's the example he gives. Then comes the next topic, the facets of emotion. Human mind is composed of a wide variety of emotions. It ranges from obscene to pure, gross to subtle, demonic to divine. The quality of emotion would depend on the direction it takes. So, what defines an emotion to be good or bad is with respect to the direction it takes. So, if it is obscene, it is mundane, it is directed towards the world, sensual. If it is pure, what defines it to be pure? When you're progressing, growing as a human, that emotion is helping to progress, help the society and yourself. Gross to subtle, divine to demonic to divine. So when it is demonic, meaning you are completely involved, attached. Divine means automatically it's evolutionary. So moment the emotion is evolutionary, it is positive, and any emotion which is devolutionary is negative. That is how we overall categorize emotion. This concept will be useful when we try to understand the category of emotion. We will be covering love, kindness, pity, charity, all the different emotions will come to. So, instead of getting overwhelmed with emotion, we need to understand the emotion and express it discreetly. That's the bottom line. That's the part played. So the formula is let the intellect control the action. So if we go back to this is the basic which we have covered till now. We need to have this back of our mind. The body, mind, and intellect we have covered earlier as well. This is the basic we are talking about, right? A body, physical body merely performs action by itself; it cannot act. It needs the mind to drive action or the intellect to drive to action. And that's the bottom line. So, what Vedanta is saying is let your intellect guide your action. Let not the action be driven by your mind. That's the point. Now, we are at the level of emotions. We're discussing strength of emotions. So, here we are saying emotions have different facets, different aspects. Whatever the aspects be, which we'll be discussing in later, but it has to be evolutionary. And how it becomes evolutionary where it is guided by the intellect. You're consciously guiding the emotions to benefit others and yourself. That's how it becomes evolutionary. The natural tendency of the water is to fall down. To take it up, it needs effort. So the natural tendency of the mind is to become negative, is to become obscene or sensual and the rest of it. To grow, it requires knowledge, understanding, effort. That's where intellect comes in. So all action, the formula is all actions has to be driven, guided by the intellect. Consciously acting is all actions driven by intellect, not the mind. Nothing wrong with emotions, but if you act on emotions, you become emotional. That's what overpowers the personality. To make it a strength, let it be filtered through the intellect and you act on the intellect. In other words, there's nothing wrong with the mind per se. Mind is like a child in us. There's nothing wrong with the child. But child needs a constant supervision. Just because a child says, ask for something, we cannot uh, mechanically go with the child because child doesn't have an understanding of life, of things. So we as an adult, we have to guide the child, right? And that's what we mean by intellect is the adult in us. Mind is the child in us. So we were talking about the concept of the facets of emotion. So they can be impure, selfish, focused on me, myself, move that to the purity, which is community focus, then to divine, which is universal, embracing the society, the larger set of people. That's how you're moving. So emotions quality depends on its direction, ranging from selfish, concentration, impure to universal embrace. So it is not core selfish versus you are able to embrace and connect with a larger group of people, set of people. That makes it divine, that makes it evolutionary. Right? Emotions range from selfish to universal. Quality depends on the direction taken. And the impure is selfish, concentrated, egocentric. And the pure extends to welfare of the community, beneficial. Divine is embrace the entire universe and all pervasive. So one of the example given here is like a medicine. Medicine metaphor is talking about emotions are good. If it is not administered, it can be detrimental. Metaphor is medicine is good. If it is not addressed, if it is not guided, it can be detrimental. Over consumption of medication can be detrimental. Similarly, over expression of emotions can be detrimental for relationship, for society, for oneself, and the rest of it. So it cautions us that the same emotions, when we say guided by intellect, this is what we mean. We need to be discreet in the expression of the emotion, how much the other person can take. So one is the actual feeling, of emotion, one is the expression of emotion. Both has to be guided by the intellect, right? So one is the quality of the emotion we are carrying, and the other is the how do we discreetly or impulsively express it. So to a partner, a partnership, if you're talking about, we can have a very lovely emotion for the partner, but if we are not discreet in the expression, it can become very toxic. Same emotions of affection, care, concern can be seen as overwhelming, right? And that can hamper the relationship. So I need to be in control of my emotions. I need to know how much to express, where to express, how to express, and the rest of it. So the Vedanta cautions to avoid concentration. Concentration, anything concentrated is detrimental. So moment it is concentrated, it becomes toxic. So when you dilute it, then it is beneficial. It actually goes to different part of the body and it benefits. So that's what he is talking about. And so guiding principle is chasten the emotions, refine the directions of the emotions, mold yourself into a perfect human being. Study features of all emotions. So basically, this is the facet of emotions he's talking about. That the few emotions are described below and analyzed. Their different features projected. Emotions being the same, difference in its quality and texture makes or mar a person. Right. So it can be any emotion. What makes it positive or negative is based on the way we express it, understand it, and express it. Right. So that's the quality and the texture of the emotion. Starting with love, the most spoken about emotion of love. Sir has written a book on attachment. Opposite of love is attachment. When, what is love? If you have to understand the purity of affection, of identification with one and all. Love is an emotion in the pure form is universal. There is no conditional conditions applied. There is no preference applied. Right? Moment there's a condition for my love, for my affection, it is attachment. Moment it is preferential, it is attachment. What do you mean by condition? I love you because of a condition. You take care of me materially, physically, emotionally, intellectually, at any level of the personality, you cater to me, then I have the affection of pure of identification with you, oneness with you. Moment you don't cater to me at any level, I hate you. I don't have the same feeling for you. That is not considered as love. Is it there? Oliver Goldsmith, it's not in this, it's in different context. Oliver Goldsmith says, love is still an emptier sound. Modern fair one's jest. Love is still an empty sound. It's just shallow. Modern fair one's jest. Jest is playfulness. All modern young people, they have this playfulness and they say, I love you, love me. All those things goes on. Love is still an emptier sound. Modern fair one's jest. In earth unknown, he says there is nothing called love in the society, in the world, in the earth unknown. If only found in the turtle's nest. Very interesting how Oliver Goldsmith in Vicar of Wakefield, he says, it's only found in the turtle's nest. Why do he chooses turtle's nest is interesting. If you see Animal Planet or anywhere, how the turtle treat their little ones. So the mother turtle, it lays the eggs, right? It makes sure it's protected. It takes care of everything. It covers it. It does all the things required to preserve it, to protect it. And having done whatever ought to be done, she leaves for good. No coming back. Oliver Goldsmith says that is true love. That is purity of love. Whereas there is no conditions applied. There is no expectation in that equation. He's going to extreme. We can't go literally. But the point being that way of conducting ourselves is the purity of love. The concept of love has totally been distorted in the world. What people call as love is far from true love. What the world understands as love is personal, preferential attachment. Attachment binds you, makes you dependent upon the object and being of attachment, leads you to downfall. See, to understand, the equation is very simple. Love plus selfishness equals attachment. Love plus selfishness equals attachment. When there is a feeling of affection, identification, love, plus there's a condition applied because of a selfishness, I'm getting something out of it, that is attachment, that is not love. Now, how do we understand? Attachment is a mental bondage. Imagine, it's easier to understand at the physical level. Imagine I tie myself physically to all the furnitures around me. Right? Now, what did I do to myself? I'm sitting here and I'm tying myself to all the furnitures around me. So in the process, what I did is I constricted myself, my movement. In other words, if I have to move, everything has to move along with me. Right? So I can't function without things moving along with me. So my movement is restricted. Exactly same thing, innocently, ignorantly, we do at the mental level. Mentally, we tie ourselves to object and beings of the world. If the person is there, I'm happy. If the person is not there, I'm not happy. First stage of attachment. Right? I gave a condition for my happiness. Person is there, I'm happy. Person is not there, I'm not happy. Next stage is, next level of deeper involvement is, person is there and is happy, then I'm happy. Person is there and is not happy, I'm not happy. I gave further conditions for my happiness. Furthermore, I go, person is there, is happy for me, then I'm happy. Person is there, she's happy, but she's happy for somebody else, I'm not happy. So I keep giving more and more conditions, making it more difficult for me to be happy, becoming more dependent on the world for happiness, and that I'll never be happy. There'll be factors, there'll be reason, it will never sustain. So personally, internally, I'm not happy. That's one part of it. Other part is, moment I'm attached, the person will not like that attachment. Attach, you lose, detach, you gain. So you lose the proximity with the person. It can be physical proximity, it can be mental proximity. At any level, moment I get attached, I get overwhelmed with this emotion of love, and I have a condition. You always have to cater to me. You have to function according to my way of doing things, my way of understanding. What happens is that's attachment. And in the process, what I'm doing is I make it difficult for the other person to function. I'm not giving the mental space for the other person. And automatically, that doesn't go well in relationships. And that bounce back. So the person detaches himself from me because of that overwhelming emotion, which I feel as love, but that's not love, that's attachment. So internally, I am not happy because I am creating further conditions for my happiness. Externally, I'm not able to maintain, contain, retain that relationship. then what is the purpose? Why am I doing it? I just mechanically go along with it. And I believe that is the way to function. So it makes you, attachment binds you, makes you dependent upon the object and being of your attachment. It can be to any object also. It's not just a person. I'm attached to my car. Anything happens to the car happens to me. There's a scratch in the car, is scratched in my heart. So I'm affected by that, right? I'm tying myself to that. So that creates a problem, leads to your downfall. Little wonder people say you have fallen in love. You must give up this clinging, selfish personal attachment, which passes off as love, and develop the true form of love. A perfect human being is all love. You observe it in child. A child is embodiment of love. It has no motive, no desire, no personal attachments. It is not being a lover, but is love itself. Everyone is drawn towards it. The world, the whole world adores the child. You must learn to follow the example of the child. Give up your selfishness. Get rid of your preferential relationship. Dissolve the personal attachment. Rise above egocentric motive and desire. You does merge with the fundamental element of love. You become the center of attraction in the world, a magnetic personality, a true human being. Thereafter, goodness flows out of you to the rest of the world. Those who mean to serve the world would do well to develop such purity of love. Love and attachment are opposed to each other. We discussed this. Love plus selfishness is attachment. That's the definition he's explaining here. So he segregates himself from them. So if you say that you love one person, what you're doing in the equation is you are separating yourself from the rest. So that is not love. If I have affection only for a particular set of people, they are related to me, my parents, my sisters, my people, I have a love, but others I don't have. That's not love. That's not called as love. There's a very beautiful saying in another context which says, uh, love should be the home, should be the center, not the boundary of affection. Quotation is, home should be the center, not the boundary of affection. As we are growing up, we start seeing the true feeling of affection, love. It can be siblings, it can be parents, it can be our friends. There's no motive, there's no agenda. There's a purity of that affection, of feeling, of oneness, of love. Home should be the center, not the boundary. We love that, we learn that feeling of affection from home. We are learning that. But we should not limit that affection to home. Home should be the center, not the boundary of affection. It flows from there, and you understand that is a purity of love, and you share it. Wherever you go, you are carrying that affection with you, that identification with you, that oneness with you. Inclusive love, not exclusive attachment, is the unfoldment of heaven. With love, you progress, you grow in life. Attachment, you fall in life. The experience of love, the expression of this feeling seems to emerge initially with your partner, your child. You perhaps did not experience it as clearly until you raise a family. Having generated this noble feeling of love, do not restrict it, confine it to family unit. Let the rays of your affection radiate all over. Your fondness permeate every being. Your love pervade the flora and fauna, hills and valleys, and fill up the entire universe. This is what we're talking about. Your home should be the center, not the boundary of your affection. The home should be the center, not the boundary of affection. So it's a beautiful facet of love, which we need to carry. So understand what is pure love, true love. It is living in perfect harmony with beings and universe, realizing your oneness with the world. Just feel this idea is given by Swami Ramatitha. He says that, how do you feel for each aspect of your body? Do you see the finger or the eye or the toe or the nail to be different from your body? No. you feel that to be part of you. Similarly, the same thing goes to the society, to the world, to community, to the country. All are part of me. That feeling of oneness is what he's talking about, realizing that oneness with the world. That inclusive feeling leads life to peace and bliss. Distortion is attachment, is it's not true identification, which is binding, which ties you. So it is important that we are able to free ourselves from that mental selfishness and purify it to be love. Become an embodiment of love like a child who loves universally without motive or desires. Let the home be the center, not the boundary of affection. Fulfill your obligated duties meticulously while keeping the mind pure and unattached. We conclude here. Questions?
I have one question,
Yes.
Guruji. So generally our mind has resistance towards things, but our intellect knows the right thing to do. So in such scenarios where there is a conflict, how do we, sharpen our intellect or use it? Then mind resisting it. So,
See, the entire life is a conflict between the mind and the intellect, right? Whoever is stronger wins the game. Action is either driven by the mind or driven by the intellect. The example we have taken earlier is a diabetic patient, right? Doctors said critical diabetes, can't afford to have any more sweets, and I give her sweet. How does she act? One way of acting is I don't care about the doctors. They are mad. They're just making money. There's a way of manipulating, and everybody lives one life. Let me enjoy my life and let me die happily. Other way of looking at it is, and she consumes the sweet. Other way of looking at it is, there's nothing wrong with sweet. I can't be living on medication. Let me uh, get over this, and I can have as much I want. Right now, that is the intellect. Now, who drives the action? Whoever is stronger drives the action. To answer your question, how do you develop the intellect? There are two ways to develop the intellect. Question everything. And point two is, do not take anything for granted. This is how you develop the intellect. Okay. Now, what is important is that in the process, we are able to understand, be practical with the mind. That's where knowledge helps. So, to keep it simple, we discussed about two aspects. If you remember earlier, one is called introspection. Remember the introspection? The last thing in the day, try to recollect the day, whatever you did from the time you got up. It should not take more than 4 to 5 minutes without getting involved in any aspect of life. I got up at this time. I went to gym. I did my study. I did this. I went to the office. I did my work, and I came back. And now I'm going. It's tiring, right? Keep the light dim and try to recollect the entire day without getting involved. This is called introspection, which we discussed earlier. It helps to make your present intellect available before the action. Whatever intellect we have to use it. So our general tendency, which as we have grown up, society, whatever there's no point complaining, but the society has been that there's no point of applying the intellect, just follow whatever is being told. That's how the tendency is being. So first thing is to use the present set of intellect. Whatever intellect I have, start using it. Right? Introspection. And the second is early morning study. Daily early morning study. It's not regular, it is daily. There's a difference. Whatever you can, whatever is possible, an investment in ourselves. It can be half an hour, 15 minutes, 1 hour, whatever is possible, practically possible, doesn't matter. Read the knowledge, Try to understand. Read less, think more. If you're spending 15 minutes, read for 7 minutes. Rest of the time is for reflection. Try to understand what you have read. It's not covering the text. So whatever we have covered till now, you try to understand that idea concept. What you're doing is, this is like a gym. This knowledge you're reflecting on, it's like intellectual gym, where the knowledge helps in refining your strength of the intellect. To answer your question, how to develop the intellect is through study, reflection, understanding. And whatever intellect we have, we need to apply it. So that's the best we can do. So we use our present intellect and we develop it further. How do we develop it further? Basic is, don't take anything for granted and question every aspect of life. Our own belief system, we need to question it. And the same approach we keep to knowledge also. Vedanta also, just because we are repeating something, don't accept it. You question it. That is a reflection part, manana. So in the later phase, we will be learning that how to remove ignorance. One is shravana. Shravana means listening. We are receiving the knowledge, information. That's first level of I don't know. How to remove that level of I don't know is through shravana, which is listening. Now I know, but I don't understand. The next level of ignorance, how to remove that, is through manana, reflection. When you go deeper into the knowledge, understanding, there is no limitation of this knowledge. That reflection helps in the application of the knowledge. And the last phase is nididhyasana, which is deeper contemplation. So you get a wisdom, you get an insight of the understanding of knowledge. So how do you develop the intellect? Through knowledge and reflection and application of the intellect. You develop the intellect.
Okay. Just to follow up, I mean, when we do this in this process, is it right to say that we'll have better control on our emotions and whatever you covered in the last few sections?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Because it builds that stamina. See, early morning gym, when we're doing, we are lifting that weight, right? That gives the stamina to the muscles. So whenever it's required, it's able to function. It gives strength and stamina, right? Similarly, that intellectual strength is required to counter the mind. Problem comes, the mind gets emotional because there is no counter argument. We see people around highly emotional. The tendency is to flow with that emotion. It takes that stability to stand back and say, no, no, I can't also get emotional. Somebody has to do whatever ought to be done, right? So what is the right course of action? That situation, to handle a situation, you need that stable intellect. So once you are developing the intellect with the knowledge understanding, you will have enough strength, stamina to counter the mind when required. It's not an overnight thing for sure, but definitely you see a better control on the personality. See, the logic is very simple. Deeper you go in the personality, better control you have, right? If I'm operating at the level of the body, I am less in control of myself. Everything is physical, everything affects me, the weather affects me, pollution affects me, everything I'm affected by at the physical level. When I start operating at the level of the mind, emotions, identifications, love, all that, I am affected at that level. That physical body, physical things are not affecting me, but I am getting affected at the emotional level. I am looking for people who cater to me, who care for me, and the rest of it. When I operate at the level of the intellect, thinking, logic, understanding, emotions are not anymore affecting me, right? So I am thinking, I am analyzing a situation and operating at that level based on my analysis. So automatically the emotions, feelings are there, but they don't impact me as a human. That's what it means by, a tall cliff. It's you are attuned to the higher, and because of the attunement, it's all in the clouds are all in the level of the chest. So it's not really affecting the top of the cliff, the head. So go deeper in your personality is what Vedanta is talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Right. We conclude for the day.
Thank you. Dhanyavad.
Thank you. Hari Om.